Hi guys, it's Craig Brown again, East Nazarene College. Alright, so this is going to be a reflection on my synagogue visit, which I went to on Saturday. So we visited a synagogue, and that was in Milton, Massachusetts, Beth Shalom, I believe it was called. And so we went there, we viewed the whole service. The person leading the service was a guy was Rabbi Benjamin. He is a conservative rabbi, and he led the service. He said the synagogue is kind of unaffiliated with a lot of other synagogues. His favorite passage is that all human beings are created as equals in God's image as well. He became a rabbi because as a kid he felt very ignorant of his faith, and he had a desire to help others answer questions that he wasn't able to answer for them at the time. And growing in Judaism was more than just about the faith, but it was about his identity and his heritage, and he wanted to dive deeper and have a better understanding of that. Which is one thing that's interesting, which is kind of similar to my previous visit to the mosque, is that Jews also believe that people of other religions can have wonderful relationships with God and still go to heaven. So that was very interesting. And he described Orthodox as the different forms of Judaism, and Orthodox he described as trying to stay true to the Sermon on the Mount, which is a positive but can be negative in the ways that you can be restricted in the development of your thoughts and your ideas. Where he described Reform Jews that believe that Jews get better and better with time and knowledge. With technological advances, it allows them to bring that knowledge into when it becomes to like reforming and improving ideas. So they look at it as in that the Jews of today are standing on the Jews of yesterday to reach higher, which was an interesting way of thinking about it. Also, similar to the mosque, it was anyone could read the scriptures and lead much of the service, which was interesting. And the good thing about it is that I feel like it's kind of both religions were very absent of ego, because what I found in this service, he was leading the majority of the service, and even though he may lead a lot of the services, he was being corrected midway through the service, it wasn't taken an offense, it was taken welcomed, because there was some parts when he was singing and chanting and reading the word, there was some words that he wasn't, maybe because he was reading it was a lot to take in. There were some times when he paused and someone next to him would help him say or be aware of the next word that was coming or pronounce it better, which was good, because sometimes you can come to some places where, unfortunately, some churches where there is some egoism there, and there's some arrogance there, and so that was good to see. The ministers wear a garment called a shawl, where the four corners having a simple design, and it started off simple, but eventually through time it got more extravagant. But the garment says that wherever you find yourself, you try to live up to God's expectation. And quite a good few members of the actual synagogue were wearing it, even ones that weren't actually participating in the service. So they have this card service that they were implementing in the service. So there were 5 cards were giving out to those speaking in the service, and those cards represent the 5 honors in the temple order in which they speak. So this just kind of streamlines the whole service. They said there's Rabbi Benjamin at the end was talking about there's this unspoken law in Judaism, which is do not annoy the congregation. So that basically means get on with it in some ways, just try and make it as smooth and as consistent and as possible. similar to the mosque, a lot of it is sung. Even a lot of the parts of the service which are repetitive and are just very much don't change are sung. You know, and it's very reflective. It's very different. It's very old-fashioned. So if you're used to a contemporary religious Christian feel, it's very different. You know, to the point where it was, yeah, I don't know, it was a bit funny. It's not funny, but it was a bit different for me, you know, the experience. He also showed us a little bit of history, talked us through a bit of history of Judaism and of Jews, and he was talking about the time when they were persecuted, and he was saying about how they couldn't buy property, they couldn't, or land. There's a lot of things that they weren't allowed to do, but what they could do was lend money and participate in commercial trade. So what they did have, which a lot of other religions and communities didn't have, was trust for each other. You know, so neighboring kings didn't have trust, but they did. So when it came to the lending of the money and the trusting of like contracts, they actually did well in that sense. He also said, which was interesting, is that even Jews, there's a time to be atheists, in the sense where if a guy's hungry, don't say God will provide, buy him some food. And that is a message I've heard in Christianity a lot, you know. And he answered a lot of questions. I know I'm running short on time now. Well, the question that I asked him was, I understand that Jews do not view Jesus as the Messiah. So the first question was, I asked him, has anybody come along since him that Jews or he felt fit the description more so? And he said no. And then the next question I said was, when Jesus does come, do you think that you'd recognize him, and what do you think he'd be like? Because I thought that the more we progress through the generations, and I mean, would we miss him? Would we think of him as would we actually acknowledge him and know it was him? The same way that us Christians believe that Jesus was the one, and other people didn't think he was the one. And he said that when God comes back, the Messiah comes, it will be obvious. That was his view. It will be obvious. But they don't wait for that. The important thing they say is that they don't wait for that. Jews are not waiting for someone to come and save the day. They will be working and doing the right thing and practicing their faith until he does come. And one more thing he mentioned was, there's a question about the struggles for Jews to practice their faith in America, and he said one of the biggest things is the consumer-orientated. America is very consumer-orientated. If anything, it can come across as anti-religious, where the flow of life in Jerusalem and for Jews is very different. So. I know I'm running low on time, but it was also a great experience. I was glad to go and see it. I'm seeing a lot of similarities between Islam and Christianity, as well as Judaism, and I think it's interesting to see that, because I don't feel like we're taught in church about how these religions were coexisting and were around at the same time, and I feel like it's important to know that. And that's all I have today. Thank you very much.